All right, ladies and gentlemen, joining us from Baghdad, where he's being held up
I'm not
by
in
members,
Baghdad. Come on.
where he's on secret location, Operation Civil War Baghdad. Ladies and gentlemen, John Canzano from johncanzano.com. You can read him there. You can listen to him as well. This guy just wants to dominate all of multimedia projects. He is on the Bald-Faced Truth Radio, 750 The Game down in Portland, Oregon, from 3 to 6 p.m. He does it all. How are you?
I'm doing well. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Just, living the dream. Summer's almost over.
Oh, don't say that. I'm holding with both hands.
Goodness gracious, man. God, we went right in from baseball, went so long, and then that got over I don't know, second week of July. You get 2 weeks off, and we just started football practice last week. It's no breaks.
It's interesting that you sort of formulate the framing of your life around your youth sports scene. And there are a lot of parents who do that. The first thing you mentioned was baseball. Then you go to football. We're doing the same thing with soccer tournaments and, all the stuff that goes on. I do not remember it being that way when I was a kid. My life and my social calendar and my sports calendar did not dictate what my family was doing. But we are sucked into that vortex, that multi-billion-dollar vortex that is youth sports, just like everybody else.
Yeah. Well, we've always had if you played, youth football, you always would start practice in August or even in junior high and high school. So you always had that. We like to get away. The baseball season has gone longer and longer. I just feel like it's just that is morphed into, a 3-month season to a damn near 5.5 months now.
Yeah. It used to be 12 or 18 games in Little League. I think it was 18 games we played. And then it was off to try to, we were all trying to get to San Bernardino.
Yes.
Such a glamorous place to go. I got to go to San Bernardino and play for the regional championship. But looks like the team from Washington has advanced to Williamsport.
They did, Bonnie Lake. Yeah. Did you ever make it to San Bernardino as a kid?
No, we never got to San Bernardino. We got to the north side of my town. We had a north and south Little League, so we had to play each other. We could never get past the North Siders.
You talked a little bit about one of your stories about the Little League World Series, the good and bad of it. I think there's certainly an element of great with it. And there's certainly what the incident that you detailed in one of your pieces that happened between Oklahoma and a team from Texas, right? Was it Oklahoma and Texas?
Yeah. There's some sign stealing going on. And
yeah.
It is every year in the Little League. I don't know what to do with Williamsport because on one hand, it's Little Leaguers, right? And it's awesome. And you get that moment a couple years ago where you had the pitcher who hit the batter and the batter goes to first base. The pitcher's crying. The batter walks over and hugs the guy, just melts us and goes, oh, yeah, this is what it's about. And then you get, the mic'd up coach in the dugout who's dropping F-bombs. You get Danny Almonte. And then you get this situation with this Oklahoma team where, sign stealing is part of baseball. We all sort of recognize that. You're not using video equipment or whatever, but you can't be on second base. The rules say you can't be on second base signaling to the batter what pitch is coming. Because for crying out loud, it's Little League, and we're supposed to be letting these guys compete against each other. And in Little League, you have to stay on the base until the pitch is delivered. So if you're standing on second, you have this unusual vantage point into the catcher's signaling. But I think it could have easily been rectified with the pitching team, the team in the field, just changing the signs. But it ended up going into a protest situation, and then everybody standing around for 20 minutes, and then bases loaded, and the Oklahoma kid hits a grand slam. And I just feel like you're taking it out of the hands of the kids, and the adults are getting in the way again, Puck.
Well, I thought that and I watched the video and I've seen it, and I'll be honest with you, I thought the umpires handled it good. I thought they probably should have had a sterner warning in the beginning to the sign stealing.
Yeah.
Clearly it was the team from Oklahoma that was doing it. Clearly the kid was doing it. He was like the Yankees. He was waving his hand all around.
Yes, yeah.
The problem were the adults, were the parents. The parents from the team from Texas. They were the problem. They were chanting, "You can't do that." And I just think that's what it kind of that crossed the line where they are signaling their anger, disapproval to a 12-year-old kid. The broadcaster, the guy who was on the call for it, even said it. It's like, what are we doing here?
Right.
I don't know. To me, there's a lot. What I've watched. I watch it all the time. I love it. I think there's a lot more good than bad that comes out of it. I'll tell you this. Here's my main takeaway from watching it and then being involved with it this year. These kids are so much bigger now. It's unbelievable how big they are.
Yeah.
There's got to be a time when, especially when they get to this, and I wonder how close we are to it, they've got to extend the bases and the mound.
Yeah.
I just think watching some of these kids who are 12 and how big they are.
Yeah.
The 46 and 60, I don't think can contain these kids anymore.
Well, they're like 3 steps between the bases, right?
Oh,
It's ridiculous. But there's an easy way to fix this. Like, people are saying, oh, sign stealing is part of baseball. Well, it's not supposed to be part of Little League baseball.
Right.
So the Oklahoma team should not be doing this. But secondarily, if they are doing it, you just switch the signs up, and 2 is a fastball and 1 is a curveball. And you let the guy on second base get confused by it. And then suddenly, it's an advantage for you. So there were a lot of ways you could have fixed this, not chanting at the other team and then the coaches sort of barking at each other. It didn't need to come to that. But then you go to Williamsport and, they're gouging these families. They're charging them $300 for a Motel 6. The Olive Garden is jacking their prices up because
the Olive Garden does have unlimited breadsticks. So I understand like how much money you're going to pay at the Olive Garden, but again, those breadsticks you can get as many as you want and then just stuff them in your purse.
The most American thing ever.
It is overeating and just sitting around. I love all of it. I love the parents, how involved. I love all the signs. I love the signs that they make with the cutouts of the kids and I'm just I was wondering this too because I was following. I'll move on. I promise to college sports here in a second, but watching the Bonnie Lake team advance and thinking, God, to go from what they were in their districts, then to state, now to this regional, now to Williamsport. Just think of the amount of money.
Oh my God!
So these parents,
they're doing GoFundMe's.
Burned through.
Yeah, they're doing GoFundMe's to help the families pay for these trips. Bonnie Lake played Murray Hill Little League in that final, to get to Williamsport.
Beaverton, right?
Yeah. And I talked to the Murray Hill coaches and one of the parents had him on my radio show. And I said, hey, just promise me you're going to conduct yourself like, this is about the kids. Don't be the story. Don't have your coach be the coach who's dropping the F-bombs in the dugout or, you don't be the sign stealing team. And they were like, yeah, we're going to do that. So, I am proud of the teams from the Pacific Northwest that are going to go and, they compete at that level. But on to Williamsport. Now we get to root for Bonnie Lake.
Yeah, we're going to root for Bonnie Lake. All right, over to college sports. I've been waiting to talk to you about this story. What is going on? It sounds like there is some issues there in the Mountain West. Boise State, right, is among 2 other schools. They are suing now the Mountain West for unpaid money. How does this affect now the new look Pac-12?
Well, there's 5 schools that left the Mountain West, as people know, and Boise State, Colorado State, and Utah State are a little different than San Diego State and Fresno State. They can file a lawsuit against the Mountain West. San Diego State and Fresno State can't sue the Mountain West because there's a provision in the California State University bylaws that prohibit members from suing other members. One campus can't sue another. And guess what? San Jose State remains in the Mountain West Conference. So for people wondering why aren't all 5 suing, this is the reason. So none of the 5 are getting any money, Puck. The Mountain West in June was supposed to pay, NCAA tournament units. Mm-hmm. They were supposed to pay college football playoff distribution to Boise State. They were supposed to pay the media rights money that they do every year. And the check did not show up, right? The check was not even in the mail. And so none of those schools got paid. Now, I'm told by other conference commissioners that this is not unprecedented, that sometimes if a school owes, what they think is going to be exit fees, the conference will withhold those distributions. But it goes a little deeper because, Gloria Navarra, as the Mountain West commissioner, also, sort of fast-tracked Grand Canyon University's admission to the conference. The 5 departing members were against this. They believed that they were deceived and that she's acting with sort of a personal vengeance. They have named her in the lawsuit as well. So they are suing the Mountain West and they are suing the commissioner, Gloria Navarez. Now, I communicated with the law firm that represents those 3 schools this morning. They say this is clear retaliation against the departing members. This is basically a code red. You left us and this is going to get hashed out. But Puck, the exit fees, we all sort of expected the exit fees that the 5 departing schools were going to pay would be negotiated down. Typically, it's 40, 50, 60 cents on the dollar when you're negotiating those deals down. I am told that the Mountain West Conference walked into the room and said, you all owe us $21 million in exit fees. And they came off that number just a little bit, but not enough to get a settlement done. And so, I'm being told by sources involved on both sides that they are happy to go to court over this and see what happens in court. I do wonder, and I normally expect a settlement in these things, but I wonder if the exit fee portion of this does end up in court, because they are so far apart on what the number should be. They're not even in the same room.
Wow. It's just there's never a day where there's not drama, is there not?
I know. And you just think about it. Gloria Navarez, the Mountain West commissioner, and Teresa Gold, the Pac-12 commissioner, they used to be friends. Like, they were coworkers, allies, friends. They worked together at multiple stops, including as deputy commissioners in the Pac-12. And, now they sort of find themselves at odds from a professional standpoint. But it does feel like there's a personal element here, and it makes this very unusual to see the Pac-12 and the Mountain West fighting. And remember, it was the Mountain West who stepped in when Oregon State and Washington State needed games and charged them an arm and a leg, $14 million to play those games, 12 games, charged them an arm and a leg, and then tried to do what? Tried to get $30 million in the second round. It was not a tenable situation for Oregon State, Washington State. And so, Oregon State and Washington State did what a lot of other schools or conferences would do. They said, okay, you won't play us. We'll take 5 of your schools. And so, you ended up with, Boise State and San Diego State, Colorado State, Utah State, Fresno State, all in the Pac-12 starting in 2026, and a whole bunch of litigation and lawyers getting paid in the meantime.
It's not a great situation all around.
No.
It's just the whole thing with college athletics is just an absolute mess. You wrote about this, speaking of college football and rivalries and what makes college sports and college football so great, the Civil War. I didn't know this until you wrote about it. They're playing this year, Oregon State, but they're not playing next year.
No.
And then the future is in doubt between these two schools. And what is leading to that doubt that they can continue this series?
Well, they agreed to play this year, and they did some creative things to make the game happen even last year. Boise State, Texas Tech was involved. Washington State, remember, ended up playing Texas Tech. Texas Tech was supposed to play Oregon. Boise State moved weekends to free up the date for Oregon State, Washington State. San Diego State moved later in the season in Washington State's schedule. There were all these tentacles that David Brown, the college gridiron scheduling guru, had to be involved with. He's the chess master who made that happen in 24. They're going to play this year. Happens in the early part of the season. Apple Cup and Civil War both getting played early. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't feel right, but at least it's getting played. In 26, both sides are telling me that they are locked into non-conference games, and then they just can't get out of the non-conference games for 2026. For 2027 and 2028, Oregon has bought its way out of the Utah State games in both seasons and has freed the calendar. Oregon is telling me, hey, it's now Oregon State's move. They haven't committed to scheduling us. Now, I think there's a reason for that. We all know that the Pac-12 doesn't know how many members it's going to have. It doesn't know how many conference games and non-conference openings it's going to have. And I think Oregon State is trying to get some of those logistics nailed down. And they're in some existing contracts with some other schools that they aren't yet ready to buy their way out. I also think there's a hope, maybe on both sides, that Tony Petitti, the Big Ten Conference commissioner, would look at the rivalries with Washington and Washington State, and Oregon State, and go, hey, instead of having Oregon and Washington play each other in that late November window, let's let the rivalry games have their moment late in the season, and let's have Oregon and Washington maybe play each other a week or two earlier. Could the Big Ten be involved in potentially making that happen? We shall see. But I think there's just some moving parts here. There's also a little bit of reluctance, I think, with some of the fans. That, some Oregon State fans still have some really bad feelings about what happened when Oregon and Washington left. And I hear from a number of Oregon State fans who say, I don't want to play this game anymore. The series started in 1894, Puck. I think it should be played It's, it survived a world war. It survived there was no game in 1911 because there was a riot in 1910. So they had no game. They played at a neutral site in 1912. That deal was brokered by a cigar store owner in Albany, Oregon, kind of the midpoint between like Portland and down. They played at a makeshift field that they built, 7,000 seat stadium that they built, and they played a game, and the police escorted the teams to and from the field. And, this series has seen some stuff is what I'm saying. Yeah. And, this whole division with, the Big Ten schools leaving, there's just some bad feelings there, some lingering bad feelings. And I think the Oregon State fans are concerned about the resources at Oregon being a factor in this series going on, of course. But I think it should be played. There's reasons on both sides to play this game. Oregon doesn't want to get on a plane, doesn't want to have to pay for a non-conference game, likes the season ticket schedule to include this game every other year. And for Oregon State, you get a Big Ten team coming to Research Stadium every other year. You're not going to do that with anybody else.
All right, media rights deal. When is that second shoe of whoever else the other partner is going to be? When does that drop?
Anytime. I'm told they are very close. I expect news this week. I think you're going to see the Pac-12 roll out that second leg of the media deal. I don't know if it's going to be the CW piece, which makes sense to me. I think the CW will be involved. I don't know if it's going to be, perhaps the Warner Brothers Discovery piece that I'm expecting, some TNT Sports and Turner. I think they're going to be involved as well. I also think, we're watching the NFL and ESPN come to this agreement. I kind of wonder if maybe, the ESPN deal with the NFL, that there's been a little bit of focus, of course, understandably so, with the NFL and ESPN on each other. I think the Olympic sports, the non-revenue generating sports in the Pac-12 are going to end up in this ESPN direct-to-consumer offering, whatever it's going to be called, ESPN Plus or whatever they're going to call it. I think the Olympic sports are going to end up under that umbrella. And I think Pac-12 Enterprises will probably get some production on that. But it could just be that there's a little bit of a delay here because ESPN and the NFL have been embroiled in their deal. But I'm expecting something very shortly. I was told perhaps midweek later this week. So keep an eye up for that.
You wrote a story this week that I had not seen this viral video that's on TikTok. It's of a kid going up to a house and he's doing the ding dong ditching that we all did as kids. Now when you watch it, it's obviously staged. The whole thing, it's clearly staged. The woman's in on it because then you can hear her say, what would I'm going to call your dad. And then the dad comes running out. No. Let's run. What are you doing? Let's get out of here. So the dad's kind of everyone's in on it, but okay, fine. It doesn't matter that it's staged, but it is part, you wrote about this, how it's kind of a throwback to your youth, that there's still kids that are kind of doing stuff like this. I mean, some would say, well, I wouldn't do it today's day and age with people. I get that. But I was thinking about, like, God, gone is that innocence of kids. Like, no one in my neighborhood TPs anyone's house anymore. Yeah. Like, that used to be such a big thing. Like when we were kids, I mean, we would egg houses. I don't want anybody to egg my house. And that's a little cruel, think back to, we used to do that all the time. Last year, because this reminded me of the story that you wrote about, that we got our house hot dogged. So this became like a new trend.
Hot dog.
Kids kids from the high school would go around throwing hot dogs at houses and cheese slices. And the only thing that we could think was, instead of egging, because the price of eggs were so expensive, the hot dogs were cheaper.
You go with what you had.
But I watched them. They did it twice, and I caught them on the second time, and I started running out chasing them. And I just to kind of put a little scare in them.
Throw me a bun. Come on.
I wasn't mad at all, right? But I was laughing so much inside.
When we were in high school.
So good. I was so proud of them, John.
I love it. When we were in high school, we threw corn tortillas. Because if you throw a corn tortilla, you can throw it like a Frisbee, not to give anybody ideas. And when it lands on a roof, if there's a little moisture, it sticks to the roof. So you will have the roof of the house littered with corn tortillas, and somebody has to get up there and get them down, not to give anybody any ideas. But this is an interesting thing, because I wrote about this, and I was surprised that some of the readers didn't know what doorbell ditching was. And I said, gosh, we used to back in the day go up and ring the doorbell and run away, and it was sort of innocent fun. And then I had some people say, some elderly people might not think that's funny. They might feel, that this is kind of harassing them. And I said, okay, that's fine. But generally you did it to your friends, or you did it to that neighbor down the street who had it coming. Yeah. So I wrote about this thing, and it hits on a number of notes. Like it's a father-son bonding moment. It's a parent-child bonding moment. It's there's an innocence to it because the kid who performs beautifully in this staged thing sort of acts like, oh, I got caught. I don't know what to do. And his dad's yelling, you run, you idiot. And the dad's running down the street. And so I think there's just some really sweet, it hits some sweet notes. But I also think that there's just, I wrote about it. And then the next day my doorbell rang and I went to get it and nobody was there. And so, so there was that. Somebody did it to me, Puck. I just kind of smiled and went, okay. But Ring cameras, we have security cameras all over the place. You can't approach the compound anymore without me knowing you're there. I wasn't home this morning. We got a delivery. I got a notification. Someone was coming up the walkway. I watched the driver on camera drop the delivery on the porch. We have taken some of the fun out of childhood and the rite of passage.
What about the burning poop on the front step? Where are we with that?
It's too far. It's too much. It's mean. It's mean. It's really, that's mean, Puck. No. I think doorbell ditching's fine. I even think the toilet papering is it's a little over the top. That's causing somebody to have to go spend part of their day out there. Tortillas.
The hot dogs one was great. I brought my 2 dogs out and just said,
"It's a dab at it. Clean it up.
Yeah. You guys clean up." Hey, all right. Last thing for you. We've kept you long. I don't know if you've seen this, and I'm just curious your thoughts and talk to some other coaches that you have relationships with, because I'd love to hear their thought on this. Jimmy Rogers in practice, several practices, has had everyone live, including the quarterbacks. And I'm like, I have never seen this before, ever. And I don't think he's done this before. At least if I read the story correctly coming out of there, that I don't think he did this at South Dakota State. Part of the reason he's doing it is, according to him, is that we got 4 quarterbacks. They're all competing. I need to see them live.
Okay.
I need to see the defense. I need to see them elude pressure and make plays. But boy, John, you are playing like clearly he has 2 guys that are separate themselves from the other 2. It's not all 4. If you read all the dispatches out of there, there's like 2 guys. But boy, you are playing with fire by letting those guys get hit in live action, aren't you?
Yeah, you are. And Jonathan Smith at Oregon State, I talked with him about this when he was at Oregon State. I asked him what he learned his first season, his second season. He was in year 3, I think. And he said, I've learned to take some pressure off the guys. And you want your team, your defense, for example, you want your defense to tackle well. And there's something about live practice that you can't duplicate in a tackling drill that helps you tackle well. And I think you sometimes see teams that don't have a lot of contact in practice, they don't tackle well. But Smith was balancing that with, he had a number of injuries and lost guys in practices that you lose for the season. And so he was sort of balancing like how much live reps can you possibly take? And so I think Jimmy Rogers is trying to get an idea of who can play at quarterback, but I got news for him. He's going to need both those guys, Puck. Wow. That's the way the game goes today. You're going to need both those QBs. I don't like too much of this. I think you can get enough of an idea in practice, but I don't like too much of this, especially if you're dealing with a roster that had massive attrition through the transfer portal. I think you could be playing with fire and some potential injuries. But, if you want to do like 5 minutes of live action in a practice just to get a look at a player, sure, go ahead and do it. But part of this is supposed to be what your early season games are about. Sure. If you're Washington State. And so, I think some of the challenge for Oregon State and Washington State is they're playing a really difficult, non-traditional schedule where, Oregon State is starting with Cal. There's no tune-up game there. Yep. And so your scrimmages have to look a little bit like live action, but not at the expense of losing players. So yes, he's playing with fire.
Next week, let's talk about this a little bit more if the story develops. But this news coming out of Norman with Mateer and gambling, and it was dismissed yesterday by a lot of people on social media as, oh, he would never just on Venmo say sports gambling. But it's caught the attention so much of Oklahoma that they're investigating it now and taking it very serious. And boy, this would just be I love the kid, and this would just be an awful news if he is caught gambling at all.
Yeah, the dumbest thing ever. And by the way, go to your Venmo and set your transactions to be private. Like, everybody, I don't need to know you're buying boba tea for your friends. I don't need to know that you in your own household with your wife, that you're paying each other back for gas money. I don't need to know this about your family. So take your Venmo transactions and go private so the rest of us are not in your space and in your world.
There he is. PSA from John Canzano. Thank you, John.
Thanks,
we'll talk to you next week.
All right.